a good idea. So, welcome in the Power Awakening podcast, episode 1, with Anders Wilmann. Did you recognize how I dressed today?
If I recognized it, I didn't think about it.
I will help you and also who's watching. That's how we met in our first podcast. So, I found it cool just to be like this again, because that was the first time when I started to have podcasts with anyone, and then that's inspired me to start up the Power Awakening podcast.
So that'll be your official podcast dress up now.
No,
Every time you just dress the same.
I have more clothes.
Oh, but good, it's nice to be a guest on a podcast for a change. Last time I was hosting and now I'm a guest on yours. It's good.
Yeah, that's good.
Brings
because
balance.
I also feel better because last time I had a 4-page with me and I wanted to say a lot, and now I just have to ask and listen. So it's good. I like it.
I'll do my best to answer.
And for this podcast, I wanted to just highlight this podcast is basically about showing people who have already tools to do Power Awakening. They experienced how to do Power Awakening when they lose power. So it can just assist you in your journey and also give some idea how is it when somebody is aware of himself or herself. Because later I will speak with some women as well. So let's get into the topic, who you are and what would you say about what you do in your life?
Oh, well, big question. I'm gonna in this context, I want to focus on the men's work part because that's kind of my passion. I work with men. I run an organization called Mannfolk, which is an organization dedicated to men's work and especially men's circles. So that's what we do. We host men's circles, and it's an ability for men to come together. So that's kind of my focus, but I also do other things, like I'm into embodiment. I love relational stuff, like anything relational. That's a huge passion of mine. I love how, the dynamic, male-female dynamic. I'm into polarity stuff. I'm a yoga teacher. I used to be a filmmaker. I mean, yeah, it's broad, but I think the main piece that runs through is the self-development piece, because that's always there, and throughout everything it's all about self-development, and it has been for the last 20 years or a little bit more now, 25 years almost.
All right, so now you have some idea who is sitting next to me. Because I feel better when you can just highlight what you feel relevant for this topic. And just the next question, just because the Power Awakening, did you notice when you lose power? And if yes, how soon can you notice that?
Ooh, that's an interesting one. To me, it's almost like I'm the cause of my disempowerment. It's almost like it feels almost like something that I do to myself. And I notice it's quite subtle, but I notice it in all kinds of situations. It can be moments where I want to speak out to a group. Maybe I'm in disagreement with a group and I want to speak out, but I censor myself. Or it can be, then I lose power. Then it's a kind of like a sinking, somewhat depressive feeling. It's like this lethargic kind of like, in audio, what I'm doing to describe what I'm doing is I'm sinking down into the couch. I'm kind of like giving up. It's a very, very strong sense of giving up. And again, it happens subtly. It can be relational. It can be moments in whether it can be in sexual interaction. If I desire something, and then I don't speak it, or I kind of push it down. That happens as well. It can be life, work situations. A lot of times also if I get really up in my head and become too analytic and especially too self-conscious, I lose power. Because then it's also like this, almost like all my energy goes towards the inner critic and this, the self-doubt. And again, instead of my power being like, within me, within my expression or action, like all the power gets drained from that and gets into the inner critic part, or the mental gymnastic part. Mm-hmm. And then that just runs its course, and again, there's this sense of loss. Like things become like there's a heavy sinking feeling in the body that comes from it.
It's interesting when you said this giving up, and since I do sport a lot, it felt like when something, as you said in the last sentence, something is too heavy, some people feel like I have to take it down, I have to rest, it's too much. But then basically what we can do is find a way of doing it, because maybe there is I can give you a practical example. In the Power Awakening studio we have a big table, and we have a small table, like those who's watching the video cannot see, but we have a smaller table, and it couldn't fit, so we couldn't just push it above the small one. So we decided to lift up and put it on because we were together. So it was very heavy, but we did. And then when I was alone, I figured out like, okay, now I cannot do this method. So then I figured out if I move the small table and just in this angle, I move it in, I can just move it in. I say like, wow. I could say like, oh shit, I have to find a place for this huge heavy table, I cannot do this alone. But instead of that, I found a solution to do. And this leads to my question, like what tools, what methods did you find when you have all these struggles? If you highlight some of the struggles and some tools that you find as help you to get out of that state when you lose power, when you feel that you don't have power.
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I was tempted to joke and say, what I do is I just crawl up in the corner and cry, and then hope that the world will get better. But I mean, you're onto something specific, because it's like the solution part, like to come up with a solution. It's a very masculine thing because we're solution oriented, and this kind of like I'm digressing a little bit, but bear with me, because when we're totally stressed, like being in a male body, when we're stressed out, our way of coping with stress is testosterone. And we gain testosterone by problem solving. So it's a very sort of nice way to, to fight this lethargy and this like collapse, to be like, okay, how can I solve it, and then to come up with something. But again, for me, I have a very active mind, so that can also be tricky. If I'm like, I feel overwhelmed, I feel, I've kind of given up, and then to sort of put the pressure on top of that I have to solve something, it can create even further collapse. So that's me. Doesn't mean everyone, but that's me, because I'm very heady. So for me, the quickest solution or the quickest thing is to go in and actually, as much as I can, actually feel. So first of all is recognizing the bodily symptoms, because often I'm not aware that it's happening. So first state is awareness, because I'm not aware that I'm like collapsing and giving up, that it's happening subconsciously. So I become aware that, oh shit, my body feels heavy. What's going on? And then there's a little curiosity there. okay, wow, I'm feeling heavy, and you know, my head is running. I feel like there's a lot of like pressure, warmth, energy in my head. Okay, something is on. And then I normally take a few breaths, and then I start taking stock of the situation. And this happens, like, it's a very quick process, but that's like step by step what happens. So after a breath or two, I regulate a little bit, and then I'm like, okay, what's actually going on? Okay, I'm faced with a problem, and I create too much of I make the problem bigger in my head. That's normally what my insight. And once I realize that, I can try to squeeze the problem down a little. That's mental gymnastic. I'll go like, well, what's actually the core of the problem? And then I can attack it. And just by doing that, you know, I'm even sitting up straighter as I'm speaking about it, because that's an action step. That's goal-oriented. Then I'm on my way to solving something. So that's the process, at least with my headiness. But I'll give you another few examples. Like I mentioned in the beginning, the collapse if I don't speak out in a group, for instance. And very often for me, a lot of that has to do with self-soothing or self-love somehow. I hate the word self-love because it's difficult. It's more like self-acceptance is a better word. Because what I'm faced with is there's a situation, let's say a group is talking about something, I disagree. But instead of speaking out, I notice this little energy that I want to speak out, but then I strangle it. And I normally strangle it out of fear, you know, fear of rejection, fear of being cast out of the group. And as I notice then my collapse, I can be like, okay, it's okay, Anders, you know. At least I'm noticing it. At least I'm aware. So it's almost like I'm parenting myself a little bit, telling my little one, you know, it's okay. At least you see it. And then it's like, again, take a breath. Is this something that you really want to change now? Is this something that you can be okay letting go and keeping it as a learning, like as a learning for next time? Because normally if I don't speak out, it gets weird. I need to speak out quickly. If not, it's kind of like it builds up to weirdness. But then if I'm sitting with that choice, I can also say, well, no, fuck it. This felt off. And I'll be like, okay, guys, or okay, people, like, listen up. 5 minutes ago, this thing happened. I collapsed. I wish I did this differently. I'm in disagreement with you all. You know, then I can speak out. And it's okay to speak out later. And I can even mention that, shit, I should have spoken out 5 minutes ago, but now I'm pushing myself, and now I'm daring. So that's one aspect.
Let me connect to this one, because I have private clients from men's group, for example, where it is a common topic that you just mentioned, that we keep down some things and letting things happen around us. But if we speak up in a way, if we brave enough, or we find a way of speaking or phrasing it in a way that is okay to tell it in this environment where I am, then everybody reports that they feel much better when they let it out, let it to express it, not letting it just to suppress it and keep it. Because many times it was related to boundaries. For example, that's the most common. When people feel that somebody invaded their boundaries, it's not good feeling at the moment I have. I should speak up and get it fixed. And once people do this, they feel much better. So once we notice this, we can feel better. When we have the sense of fear, for example, like I have a fear of talking now, or I have a fear to protect my boundaries. But once I experience that it's okay to just let it out, then after that it will just getting better, basically. It's a practice. Of course, it will be not in every situation, but where I can, where it's a safe environment. For example, in a men's group, in groups, because there is a facilitator, there are others who there basically to practice or share whatever their struggle is and want to hear others' opinion, others' feelings, solutions if somebody have already. Then it's a safe place to disagree, to express opinion because maybe I think in a bad way, and then I can just understand the other way, and then I just completely okay with the whole thing. So talking, it's one of the key, and not just in our life, but in relationships. Because imagine this in a relationship and you don't say the thing, and then the next time as well, and the next time as well. Doesn't matter why is it, why I cannot tell my partner what I have here.
Yeah.
It will just end up in a situation where there is a lot of frustration builds up. There's a lot of things that, for example, related to boundaries are not clear. And I got hurt a lot, but I couldn't speak. So, yeah, talking, expressing myself is one of the key to have power.
And I'll throw in something there as well, because it's dangerous not to speak out. And I have a theory. I'm not a neurosurgeon or a scientist, but we make neural pathways in the brain. That's a fact as far as I know. At least I believe so. And I'm under the impression, or at least my belief is, if I keep collapsing in a situation, continuously collapsing all the time, without stepping into my power, without, especially around boundaries, that becomes almost like the habit. The neural pathways that fire that way, it becomes almost like the norm, and it'll happen quicker and quicker every time. So each time this is a wake-up call for me, and hopefully anyone who listens, because I need to hear this as well, is that it's almost like enforcing a bad habit. And it can break, and then we can start creating new neural pathways as well by actually voicing boundaries. And even in retrospect, speaking out. I'll give you the best, at least in my opinion, the best example of collapse I have. I'm just going to try to voice it gently in order to not throw my ex under the boat. She's a beautiful person, and we're good communicators. But there's a tendency for her, because she wants to voice stuff. She wants to be heard, so she wants to speak. And there is a moment often that happens, we talked about it a little bit, where I go into collapse because I don't see a solution, because I'm not fully listening to her, I'm not fully present. She wants to be heard, and I'm like, I'm not really here, and I go into this weird collapse. And I notice that it also happens easier and quicker every time. My collapse. My boundary will be, hey, we need to stop. I need a breath. I'm not fully paying attention. You're not getting the understanding you want if you just continue talking right now. So we need to stop. I need to, check some words. There might be something. But my tendency is just, okay, fine, I'll listen. And then she goes, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, that's what I'm hearing. And it's not good for any of us. And that's my collapse. And my, the way to step out of it is, again, gaining my spine and saying, no, this is not working. And my fear is that because I've done that before, and that's triggered her, and then we're into a fight situation. And because I'm fearing that fight, in Norwegian we call it svelge kameler, swallow the camel, So in that moment I'm like, oh, okay, fine, I'll listen to you. And then I'm in collapse mode, and I'm just hearing blah, 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 blah until she's done. Neither of us feels happy. And that's my typical collapse. And again, just by outside of this conversation, even just by going to her and saying, this is what happens often with me, then we can start work through it. Not necessarily in the moment, just, a couple of days afterwards, I can go back to her and say, look, when we spoke the other day, that happened. It feels awful for me. It's not respectful for you. It's like, we need to do better. I need to speak my boundaries. And you need to work on not getting offended if I say stop. I need a pause.
It's good that you mentioned this, because just to reflect to that one, psychologically we are very good to get out of situations. And in a very difficult situation where you are in a conversation where something is too much, too heavy, I cannot deal with it, the brain just shut off. And then we feel this. Yeah. And the good thing is to notice and communicate it. Yeah. Because I can say that I don't know what's going on, but I just feel like an unplugged electrical device, you know,
Yeah.
when the vacuum cleaner is on and then you unplug it. The awareness of this is important. As you said, if you don't communicate it, the other can feel like you just don't care, you are not there, and then you just escalate the situation. But for this, self-awareness is needed. And how we can gain this self-awareness is basically to do practices that helps us realize what I feel in the body, as you said.
Yeah.
Because maybe it starts with my muscles that are collapsing, and then I notice it, and then I can be aware of the situation.
Yeah.
But often the biggest problem, people just get into the understanding of the situation too late, when it's already in an escalation mode. Because then it can just further escalate, and it's not good. So on the Heredity Being Genuine workshop, I do body scan meditation with the participants, for example.
I like that.
Because then you connect the brain with each body part, and then you can be aware of all happenings with practice. Not with one workshop, not with one practice, constant practice is important.
I think that's a great tool, because we use that. I try to at least say we use that in our circles, and I like to almost like push it onto people, because it's that's the wrong term. I hope to inspire people to use it, because it's such a nice way of actually realizing what's going on. Because normally what happens, any sort of like what we refer to as loss of power, like often it's like a nervous system activation. We activate fight, flight, freeze. And freeze is kind of like the collapse thing, you know, it's like I'm dead basically. I'm playing dead. And it's, I lost my train of thoughts here a moment. Give me a few seconds. Because the idea is to get that back. But the problem is, once our nervous system has been activated, as you mentioned, like our brain doesn't work properly. So to realize actually that whole thing is going on, it's not, the awareness is not really there. But the body scan can work. If I'm aware that, you know, wow, my hands just got really cold. I'm noticing my spine just curved down. I'm hearing my own voice being all like murky and low and slow, and I'm noticing this like heavy burden and like heaviness on my shoulders. It's like, wow, I'm really activated now in a collapsed state. And then it's possible to, as you said, just at least speak that out. And that's the first step to like gaining power, because it's again, it's awareness, and it brings truth in, because that's actually what's going on. And then it's possible to work from there. You know, then what? If I know that I'm collapsed, okay, well, what do I need? I need a few breaths. Maybe I need a, you know, distance here. Maybe I need to like exit this conversation for a moment to, you know, find my footing, literally. Maybe I need to like step on the ground a little bit.
Yeah, and accepting it actually, because it's, if you don't know what's going on, what is this? Maybe I can just think, I don't care the other, too boring, cannot do anything with it. When I feel this, it's probably because I should not be here. There's a lot of things can come up, because those who don't know about psychology or neuroscience or anything, just notice this. There is no tool to find out, like, how can I deal with this situation? So when we host the workshops we have, it's about talking about these situations, for example, because you can see even on that workshop, on my workshop, we both know about this effect of the mind. So that it's easier to understand why I cannot deal with something. So we are here to listen to you, and then if you have solution, if you find a solution, or even we just experience the same, you can at least see like, so it's not just me. Great to know. So being on the men's groups frequently, you can find solutions to actual issues in your life. You can learn something that you can avoid in your life. So it's not something like, I attend to a workshop, I have several topics, I didn't hear any of them this time. Okay, I don't come because it's not my group. It's not the way of doing the inner work. Yeah.
Sure.